When video games began entering households, developers faced new challenges. Frankly, how to design a game. Questions arose about what made a good game and how existing knowledge could be tested or applied in this emerging medium. Some genres like sports games transitioned quite easily with their well-defined rules, a clear play space, and obvious ways to determine winners or losers. And then role-playing games, inspired by creations like Dungeons & Dragons with its systematic rule sets, made for a similarly easy transition. While this topic could lead to an entire video series, let's try to find a nuanced argument here. What if we could take some lessons applied while designing video games and apply them back to the tabletop? I don't mean necessarily direct ports of video games to board games. More, how can we pull apart mechanics, features, immersive details that video games have introduced to us since their inception and bring them right onto the tabletop? Well, for that, we're gonna have to find a popular video game franchise to farm some engagement off of or make an argument out of. Nintendo's Super Smash Bros., first released in 1999, is famous for its crossover of beloved characters, each with their own moves, stages, and playstyles. Just take a second and think about how mind-blowing that was seeing it for the first time. Pikachu and Kirby fighting in Hyrule was something your brain couldn't even process. Yet here we were, enjoying what used to be a playground argument over who really could beat who. And then Smash continued through the years to level this concept up. New maps, characters, franchises introduced, and then a fan base that loved to see every new inclusion.
Okay, that's all the time I've got. I gotta get back to playing.
Now I'm not gonna go ahead and say that Super Smash Bros. Directly impacted this game, but it's hard not to think, in a certain sense, that Disney's Villainous is kind of the Super Smash Bros. Of the tabletop world. Villainous brings together villains from across Disney and Pixar's universe, letting you do some crazy things itself, like letting Maleficent take on Yzma, or Ursula take on Hades. And if you want even more flavor, there are Star Wars and even Marvel spin-offs to expand this universe to your heart's content. Each character you play in Villainous has their own unique objective, similarly to how Smash has their own unique moveset. In Villainous, every villain has their own board full of their own unique locations, deck full of objectives and traits that they can take on, and Fate deck full of the protagonists or heroes that they're going to need to face off against. In Villainous, every player's objective is different. If you're Jafar, you're trying to take over Agrabah by claiming the Sultan's palace, but you're going to need to do that with the genie and the lamp hidden in the Cave of Wonders. If you're Prince John, you're going to need to start your turn with 20 power, and power is the game's currency, perfectly placing him in his land of greed and overtaxation. The artwork, the tokens, the villain movers themselves are crafted to evoke each villain's world, providing a tactile and visual experience that's just uniquely Disney. Villainous shows that you can take inspiration from an idea like Super Smash Bros. And really have something that's character-driven, deep in its mechanics and lore, but still very reverent and respectful to its source material. What's more, I like Villainous's idea of flipping stories on their head. It creates a new experience for players and those familiar with those franchises alike, really pulling you in to try new things and experience what it would be like to follow through with a storyline that has seemingly never happened. Recently, I've come across some communities in Super Smash Bros. That modify the game to their will. Crash Bandicoot in Smash 64, Shovel Knight in Brawl, stages, movesets, characters, all seeming to be placed in at this community's whim. But I mean, come on, that's video games. There's no way that... Alright. Villainous also has a modding community. Let's look at the Villainous homebrew. The homebrew basically takes suggestions from the community, and then they try to workshop in how those characters will fit in. Imagine Bill Cipher from Gravity Falls, or Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame, with their own set of moves, cards, artwork, the like, but all sourced from the community, play tested, and then tried again. It really adds this extra layer that wasn't there before. Heck, their wiki even has a card builder, allowing for you to customize the sets the way that you want, and then place them back within the community to get feedback and basically build a better game for everyone. Like any game, Villainous is not perfect. I do find that this game runs incredibly long when it gets to 4 or more players at the table. And when you want to just learn a new villain and try to map out every piece as perfectly as you can, things can really drag out and people at the table can just be left waiting for their turn to come back around rather than feeling excited. Well, you can interfere with others using your opponent's fate decks. I feel like this interaction is quite limited and doesn't necessarily really give it that combat feel like I'm truly going up against another villain at the table. I'm more or less just throwing speed bumps in their way that I know they're going to be able to overcome with a pretty good amount of ease. Now, the biggest gripe that I have for this overall is that Villainous for me is split into 3 categories. You got the Disney and Pixar variant, you've got the Star Wars variant, and you've got the Marvel variant. Now, wouldn't it be awesome if all of those variants could interplay together or were designed in some way to adapt from one to the next? But that's just not possible. And that boggles my mind. You would think when you have the ability to create for all of these different universes, you would give the player the agency to be able to have a battle of all time. Darth Vader versus Hades. Why would they design 3 different game sets that at the very least can't even adapt together? It just feels like such a wasted opportunity and such a limiting factor on what could have really blown the lid off of this franchise as a whole. Yet here we are, and here you are stuck playing within lanes. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Just like Super Smash Bros. Set the stage for what an IP crossover could be in video games, Villainous feels like it's done something very similar to the tabletop. Whether you're a fan of characters, storyline, or strategy, Villainous brings all of that with so much grace and reverence to the table, meaning that you don't have to be a Disney fan or a board game enthusiast to have a good time here. You're willing to bend the rules and change a story as you see fit. And I think that's a fantastic thing to bring to the gaming table. Makes Villainous worth a try. What do you guys think? What are some video games out there that you think have directly inspired something on the tabletop? Now, I'm not talking about ports like Slay the Spire or anything that has a direct line, but something like this. Where have we seen tropes, mechanics, instances where video games were then brought to the tabletop? Leave those down below. I'd love to hear about it. And again, if there's anything behind you want me to talk about, please do so below. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you in the next one.